Family Services of Westchester provides a broad range of services that strengthen and support parents, children, and individuals at every stage of life. Today, we're going to learn more about the Therapeutic Foster Care Program, a program that provides children with a stable and consistent environment in the home of specially trained and qualified therapeutic parents. Who are these children? And who are these amazing foster parents? Two of the individuals who provide the skills and support essential for the continuation of this program are my guests today. They are Terri Jackson, Recruitment Specialist and Trainer, and James Kauffman, Vice President of Family Services of Westchester. I'm Alice Bloom. This is A Town in Village 2. Welcome to my show. Let me welcome my guests today, James Kauffman and Terri Jackson. Thank you so much for being here. Now, you work with some very challenging situations. Please describe to me the child you would be trying to place in foster care.
Sure. The children actually range from 5 to 18 years old, and they come in before their 18th birthday. Every shape, size, color, sex, you name it. And they usually have some pretty serious problems, some of which have been a result of where they've come from, and others are sometimes what they've gone through themselves. Our program is designed to work with children that are struggling with all kinds of issues, so there isn't one particular child we could refer to.
So are we talking about kids with special needs, kids with learning disabilities or physical disabilities?
I would say more children with emotional disabilities.
Yes, the primary group is kids that've got some sort of emotional disability, and they may come to us with cognitive impairments or special needs for school. Whatever that child has, if they're with us, we're going to take care of them and help them grow.
But you are focused on children with special needs, not necessarily just a child who needs
seriously
placement.
emotionally disturbed, behavioral issues, not special needs in terms of the cognitive impairments as much.
Okay, so we're not talking about a child with a learning disability.
They might have a part of it, but that's not the main issue.
How about children with physical disabilities?
We haven't had any, but if the Department of Social Services or the Office of Mental Health came to us and asked if we could accommodate them, we would. Mm-hmm. We've made special arrangements in some of our group homes for kids with medical issues as well.
Okay, so you have group homes as well as private foster families?
Yes, therapeutic.
Okay. Now, many of the children that you do work with have been through very difficult family situations. Mm-hmm. Some are victims of abuse themselves, or they've witnessed a parent being abused, or alcohol or substance abuse situations. They've been, I think what you said, involuntarily removed from their home. Is that probably accurate?
Some of our children have been voluntarily moved, but we also have what's called family-based treatment, and those children is a volunteer program where parents place their children into care for various different reasons.
Okay, so a parent may be unable to care for the child.
Yeah, at that time, and they may need a temporary place until maybe a parent has a health issue that they need to work on, and they may not have a family member who can care for the child at that particular time, and they may have to put their children in care until they can really get their medical issues under control so that they can be the best that they can be.
Now, how does a family qualify to be a foster family or foster parent for a person who has some challenging
Well, the first
needs?
thing they qualify is that they have to have a heart. They have to want to work with kids, and they have to want to dedicate a part of their life. Their life will be different and will be changed enormously. So they have to be committed, and they have to feel it here. A lot of people talk negatively about the foster care system or the specialized foster care or therapeutic. The parents that do this work are saving kids' lives every single day. And the only way you can do that is by caring about the kids. So that's where it starts. It gets very involved after that, and we could walk you through the whole thing.
Well, what happens if I called you and said, you know, my kids are grown now, and I've got the space and the time, and I think I could do it?
Well,
you would talk to Terri, and Terri would tell you a little about the program.
Well, I would invite you in and ask you to come to one of our informational orientation sessions that happens the first Tuesday of every month at 6 o'clock. I would get some information about, from you, how long have you wanted to do this? Thank you, it's a great opportunity. And I'll let, kind of really reeling you in and letting you know that through this process, it's rewarding, but also it's a training process and it's a selection process.
So what would I be committing to if try taking
Well,
a
at the
child?
first orientation, 45 minutes to an hour. If you
Okay.
decided you wanted to go the distance, you'd be committing to a lot of training sessions, a family specialist, which is usually a social worker, visiting you, the child, the school, therapist, working with everyone. You'd be committing to coming to a mutual support group with parents that are doing exactly what you're doing and sharing your experiences so you can learn from each other. And the rookies really learn from the veterans. Every rookie parent says, oh, it's going great, and all the parents go, it's the honeymoon period, just wait. And we all look at our watches and say, remember the date that they said that? So you go through a lot. You get a lot, but you go through a lot. So you have to be prepared to give in order to get.
So you're not just taking on the care of this child, you're also committing to all of this training.
Correct.
And also somebody coming into your house.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, when you're coming into my house, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for, to make sure you have adequate space for a child, but also a warm, nurturing environment where a child can grow.
That's a little touchy-feeling. What is
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
It is a little touchy-feely. We're looking for people that when you walk into the house, you get a sense that it's a home. We're not doing 3 hots and a cot. We're doing engagement and work with children that have got some serious issues, and our parents have to be committed to that. So it has to be real. It's going to change your life.
Do you have to have a lovely home and separate bedrooms for every child?
Not at
No,
all.
not at all.
It's not about the look of the home, it's about the feel of the home. Some of our best families come from modest means. Some of our best families come from wealthy. It doesn't matter. What matters is what's in your heart, what you feel, and how we feel when we walk in your house. When you walk in someone's home, you can get a feel for how it's lived in, how the kids are engaged, how the children are being raised.
How
That's
many
what we look
people
for.
do you reject?
Well,
Well, so far we haven't rejected anyone. We have people who come to us who really want to be committed to this at this point. And for those, who are still teetering, there are other ways to help children if they're not going to foster. We have so many other programs that an individual can even volunteer.
the way that no one's rejected is that if you come to the orientation, let's say 100 people call, 10 show to the orientation, 5 go to the training, 3 make it through the training. There's a natural selection process. This isn't something you do on a whim. Most of our families have struggled for years, have known someone else in their church or community that's done it, have discussed it, have looked at it a little bit, and when they finally get ready to do it, they've got to be committed, because it's a self-selection process, as well as our children having the right to say, well, we don't want to live with that family. It's a natural matching process. Try to say that word again.
That was a tough one.
Natural. It's a matching process on both ends. So families tend to self-select out, and there's other service providers with other places you can work with kids. So there's a lot of need out there, and we're just one element of fulfilling that need.
Do you find that families who foster are repeaters? If they've done it once, do they do it again?
Yes, they do.
I mean, that's not a
Yes.
bad thing.
No,
Not at all.
that's a great thing.
What happens is that many times the children get healthier, or the families recover and can take their child back home, or the child ages out of it, and the families still want to continue the work. They may actually stay connected to the child.
That was my next
Oh,
question.
sorry.
No, that's fine. I would imagine if you've had a reasonably good experience, or well, I don't know, raising a child is, sometimes it's a good experience. I mean, in retrospect, it's great, but, but while you're living through it, there are ups and downs.
That's right.
But especially with a child who's challenging, I mean, they, tear your heart out at times, but when you see them achieve or overcome obstacles, I would think I'd want to be able to be in touch with them and enjoy their future
Yes.
successes.
I've been doing it about 14 years in this agency, and there are children that have come, gone, and the families have stayed connected. The systems have changed, the social workers have changed, the administrators have changed, but the children and the families stay connected.
And you encourage that?
Yes, we do.
Within reason, if the child and the parents want to, and it's a healthy relationship, yes. If it's something that isn't working out too well, it will naturally go apart.
Does it ever create a problem? I mean, if a child, the child's been removed from a home, there were problems there, whether the parents are unwell, unable to take care of the child may have challenges that they can't cope with. I mean, we've talked a little bit about that. Is there ever resentment between the natural parents, the biological parents, and the foster parents? Do you ever have a situation where the natural parents don't want to be reminded that they needed help?
They may initially have some hesitancy, but once they find out that we're not trying to take their kid, that we're trying to help them
Right.
be better and go home, usually I'd say that the foster parents, therapeutic foster parents, and the biologic parents get to know each other.
Right.
Really?
The days of send your kid away and don't see him for 21 years or older. You come into care, you're going home again.
Well, you know, there's so much misunderstanding. We were talking about that for a few minutes before we sat down. That, you know, I know what I see sometimes on television or movies, and sometimes they paint a pretty bleak picture of a foster care situation.
Yeah.
I mean, is that unwarranted?
It's absolutely unwarranted. There's hundreds of thousands of kids in this country that are living better lives because of it. I have friends that grew up in the foster care system that tell me if it wasn't for those families, I'd be dead. But the only thing that makes it to the radio is languishing in foster care. If you live with us, you're going to grow. You're going to go to school, you're going to go to dentist, you're going to go to therapy if you need it. You're going to get help, and you're going to do better with us. So this whole notion that going into foster care is a bad thing, if we didn't have the system, they'd be what, on the streets begging? Where would these kids be if it wasn't for committed families that we're looking for to recruit this tonight, that we need more of because there's a shortage? So I get a little steamed about that because I hear too much negativity. Foster care is not a four-letter word.
And do you find that most of the kids who are in foster care have fond remembrances of it or of the families that nurtured them?
Not immediately, and that's one of the things we tell our parents. You're going to wait to hear the thank you. Just like your own children, they may be 20 or 25 before they say, Mom, I appreciate your work.
Still waiting.
Exactly. So the reward is there, but it's not going to be immediate. It's not going to be that the minute they walk in, they say thank you. They're going to take a long time to get to know you and you them. But over time and in the future, you'll find that the relationship is there and it's solid and it's rewarding.
How long does a child generally stay in foster care?
Well, that varies from case to case and with child to child. Oftentimes, if it's a court order removed, the courts will tell us when the child is able to be returned home. And
I'd say that the average is going down. When I first started, there were situations where children might grow up in the foster care system, and I'd say that the average is probably down to a year, year and a half. And the notion being that the children are going to be involved with their families, so let's get them home connected or reconnected as soon as possible. So the system has shifted somewhat with the notion of support the children home with their families. It's shortened length of stay, and I think that's nationally as well as locally.
And do you find that when children are in foster care, they tend to go to one family and then are returned to their own family? Again, the media tells us that they're sort of serial foster situations. Is that misunderstanding as well?
No, there's situations in which you're doing a mutual match. Sometimes the first family may not click, and everyone wants to say it's a negative or it's a failure, but sometimes it takes a while for people to find each other the right way. Optimally, we'd like them to stay with the first family they go to, and more often than not they do. But the notion that they may move is a bad thing. It depends on the situation. You're trying to find an optimal living situation for people to help each other, particularly a child in some serious need. And sometimes the kids themselves will tell you, I had to go through those changes to begin to appreciate the parent. If I'd only known what I knew in my second placement, maybe I wouldn't have acted that way in my first placement. So there's a learning curve on this
Do
for the
kids
children.
actually say that? I mean,
Yes. Well, after 15 years and they're 25 or 30 years old, and I met them when they were 10 and 15, they don't say it at 16 or 17, but at 25 they come back and tell you, they knock on your door, say, I want to say thank you for terrible things that they think that they did, which they didn't really do, or that they thought they were giving you a hard time, but they were just kids, and they come back and say, I want to say I'm sorry, and you're like, you were just a kid, it's okay. But they don't do that at 17 or 18. They do that at 20, 25, or a few years later when they've had a time to get some distance from it.
maybe when they have their own kids. Maybe that's
Maybe
when
then
they
too.
realize it.
Right.
Now, you talk about, of course, the services that kids enjoy in foster care that they might not be available to them in their homes because of all kinds of reasons. Who pays for the orthodontist, the dentist, the pediatrician, the special care, the tutors? I mean, whatever you need to get through. I mean, all the growing up things that we parents pay for.
well, we're funded by the Department of Social Services and as well as the Mental Health Association.
The mental health system, that's another agency. The Office of Mental Health through Medicaid.
Yeah, okay.
And what happens is that some of the reimbursement that the parents get as a stipend is used for the kids. In other cases, the Department of Social Services may give special allowances for certain events. And in other times, we may eat it, or it might come out of our rate. But almost anything the kid needs, they get. And if they're old enough for the prom, we'll help them, but we expect them to work if capable and contribute, just like my own daughter. So we're trying to model this after a regular, everyday, anybody's family.
Okay, so we'll say you have a child, I'm fostering a child and I see, boy, that kid really would benefit from orthodontia. I mean, it's a severe problem and that's going to affect a child for the rest of his or her life. I'd come back to you and say, how can we get this done?
It's a part of what they're entitled to. The Medicaid covers that. We have a requirement to ensure that they get to a dentist twice a year by regulation. That's a minimal requirement. If the child needs more, it's our responsibility to make sure of that. So we've had the Medicaid coverage, or Social Security, or if it's not covered there, special stipends given.
Now, understand where this is coming from, but does it seem to you that sometimes these kids get a whole lot more than they might have gotten in a dysfunctional family or a family under great stress?
Yes. The difficulty sometimes is I think that the kids themselves feel a little bit like guilty because I have more sometimes now than I had before. And so it can be part of the conflict that you have to help them with and the family as well. So I mean,
yeah, I would say that, you know. But with the partnership that our parents have with each other, the birth parent and the foster parent, it really kind of works to the child's benefit because they still always have the best of both worlds.
yeah, they're not cut off from their families. We're not trying to keep them apart, but they do have conflict over it, particularly if they come in as 13 or 14 and they have these choices of which family to be with, and it can be conflictual.
Well, I can see how that happens. Well, you said I couldn't go out Saturday night. Maybe this
This
one will
is
say
where
I
I
can.
can.
I go back and forth. So do you control how much contact they have with their natural families? I mean, is that advisable?
We don't really control it.
No, we don't.
There's usually visitation set up sometimes by the families who place their children voluntarily, and sometimes by the Department of Social Services through the courts. And we honor that visitation and we give our comments and feedback. Is it going well? Is it not? What work do they need to do to get together? Or it's going well, maybe they're ready to return home. Each case is different. Each child is different. There's just not one rule.
About how many kids do you have in foster care now?
Therapeutic and family-based treatment, about 30.
About 30 children.
30, 32.
38, no, 38.
And how many staffers do you have to train and monitor and
Well,
support?
we have different elements. Terry's doing home finding,
Home
recruiting,
finding and recruiting.
training.
Training, you have maybe, 3 family specialists?
I think 4 if you combine both programs, and then you have someone assisting in administration, another person doing recruiting for family-based treatment, families and kids. So totally, you end up with about a staffing ratio of 1 social worker per 5 families, more or less depending on the caseload. It's very intensive, very intensive.
Yes, it is.
But that sounds like a pretty good ratio.
It is.
It is.
Again, this may be the misunderstandings we have in the press, but we think of social workers with hundreds of cases. I mean, impossible number to
We're also
mention.
a specialized type of foster care. Our kids have emotional disturbances or mental health issues. And we're also Westchester County, where I'd like to think we do it better. No offense to any other counties. But there may be situations where the caseload ratios are really high. But ours is a specialized service, and it's very intensive for good reason.
Now, you're located in Westchester County. Are all the kids from Westchester County?
No, we service children from Rockland and Putnam as well.
Okay. And do all the foster families need to be in Westchester?
No, they do not. We look for foster parents in the communities of Rockland and Putnam and Westchester.
So that's okay if you live way up in Stony Point
Yes.
or I don't know, just Valley Cottage. I think of
Yes.
places that I don't really know.
Yes.
And
That's
the
all
staff
right.
sometimes are not so happy about the drive, but they do it.
But we
And
do
we
it.
sometimes have a number of families in the same area, so we can cluster that together a little
Well,
bit.
but then those families still have to go for training.
Yes.
They have to
Yes.
come to White Plains
That's
for that?
right.
That, no, they do come to White Plains, but also, we also do different type of trainings. We try to hold trainings in different areas. You know, we're very flexible about the training. You know, if someone says, you know, I can't do it in the evening, but I can do it in the daytime, we will accommodate that.
Okay.
And
How many-
weekends.
And weekends, yes.
Oh, really? So you try to overcome every obstacle that
Yes.
might
The
arise.
staff that are hired are under impression and learn very quickly that we're very flexible. This is not 9 to 5 work. Never has been, never will be, and we just don't have those kind of people, as far as I know.
Now, is both of your background in therapeutic foster care, James?
Mine
or-
started out in mental health and
Okay.
child sexual abuse, and then went in a variety of different directions. Currently responsible for a number of programs We service from adoption to seniors, geriatrics.
Meaning Family Services of
Right,
Westchester.
and a number of those programs that I'm responsible for in that range. So our backgrounds in the agency tend to be that you'll find people with multiple experiences.
Yes.
Terri isn't just this program, you've come from someplace else as well.
I come from someplace else. My background has been with families and children, but servicing on the other end, helping women get back to work. And coming into this field, working with therapeutic foster care, still working with families in some way and helping. And that's the major part, is wanting to be there to help individuals in every aspect of their life.
Now, do you have a great many more children you would like to service than you can?
Yes.
Of course. Yes.
Always.
So what happens to these kids if you don't have foster families?
They wait in different
wait,
places.
or
Sometimes they're in diagnostics, they may be in group homes, they may be in residentials, hospitals, different places that they stay. They may be at home kind of hanging on. DSS is being supportive and trying to hold the family till there's a bed available. It's tough. That's why we're here.
That is tough. Do you find that there's more of a need for your services in bad economic times? Does
We've
that matter?
heard that. In fact, had that in a discussion on a committee meeting today. And we're not looking for people that are in it for the money, and they can kind of make that pretty clear whether they mean to or not when they walk in the door. You have to do this with love. It's just not a way to make real money.
You know, I wasn't even really thinking about that, but I guess that
heard
could be.
economics, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, I'm thinking about the stress on families. I mean, you think of a family that lost jobs, or you have a challenging child to begin with, and the family's under enormous stress because of economic situations.
That's a good point. I think we're probably at the front end of that. It's a little soon to tell, but as the economics get worse and the families struggle more, I think we will see more, but that's anecdotal.
We haven't seen that yet.
I don't think we've seen a flood.
We haven't seen that yet.
And we wouldn't be big enough to capture all those statistics either. That would be like a big government trying to pay attention to that.
Now, what other organizations provide the
Yeah.
kind of therapeutic foster care that you do? Are there, I don't want to use the word competitive organizations because you're all helping kids.
We're all friendly competitors, but there are a number of different agencies that do this, so that if a parent came to us and we spoke with them and it didn't sound like we were the right agency or program, we would refer. Any parent that's interested in helping a kid that's got something to offer and cares, we're not going to let go of very easily, even if we can't be the ones to work with them. So there are choices and there are different agencies. And I hope our friendly competitors would say the same thing to their parents. If it doesn't sound like they can work with them, send them to us.
What would be the obstacle? I mean, if parents came to you and you thought they were good candidates to work with, why would they seek a different agency?
They wouldn't.
You're so great.
Right. Oftentimes we get calls from New York City.
Oh, I see.
And,
jurisdictionally, I mean, you just can't get there.
Can't.
Or they may want a child in, quote, regular foster care. They don't necessarily want a child with the level of needs that we have. Or they may not have understood what foster care therapeutic was, so after an explanation they realize. It's an interactive process. That's why when they call Terri, we're not just going to send you a letter. We're going to talk to you, engage you, and invite you in to talk to you some more to make sure it's kind of for you. And if it is, great. And if it's not, we'll help you find your way.
Right.
I mean, that's
what we do.
We've been doing.
Wow. And so this must be enormously gratifying.
It is.
And is it at times frustrating?
It can be.
I find it more gratifying as an administrator. I miss the hands-on
But
stuff.
as a trainer,
But as a trainer,
I find it can be, or a recruiter, I can find it being frustrating because we are desperately seeking for families, and just really getting the word out. That's the thing, and people wanting to do this and really caring to do this.
Do you find, are there many kids who are in foster care who are subsequently adopted?
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, the parents that come in, there's usually two choices: to be a therapeutic foster parent and possibly have the child return home or go on to independent living, or to be a pre-adoptive therapeutic foster parent. And all those questions are asked up front, and we try to help them to just make a decision that'll work in the long run, because it's very traumatic if that's offered and doesn't happen, or vice versa.
Do you always know, I mean, when you have a child who's going into therapeutic foster care, that child also is seeking an adoptive situation? You do know that?
Well, in some ways, yes, in some ways, no. Because a child can come into care, and there's always two plans. It's concurrent planning. There's a plan for the child to return home, and there's a plan for the child to remain in care. And that varies from child to child. And if it ever comes to the point where someone has to be adopted, hopefully that family that they're with will open their arms and say, you know what, I'm here.
Does that really happen? I mean, adoption is a
Oh,
long-term
yeah.
commitment.
Yes, it does.
It does.
It does.
We'll have family that swear they're committed to adoption. It doesn't quite work out, and others that say no, 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 and God, I've got to have it for the rest of my life. So you do the best you can. You get the good hearts, but then you let the process kind of weave its way out, I guess.
I look at the stresses in this world of raising kids, and I just wonder, who are these people, these amazing people who extend themselves to a challenging child? I mean, it's hard enough to raise an average child or a child without any particular issues. I mean, everybody's got some issues, but any strong emotional problems. Who are these people?
Well, I find them to be wonderful individuals, great loving people who have the desire to continue to help people.
Do you see anything consistent in their backgrounds that make them want to do this?
They vary. I mean,
it's hard
to say.
You kind of know there's a common thread, but you don't quite know what it is. But at the end of the day, you know it's that they really care about the kids, and they'll sometimes argue with us about what they think is best, and that's a good argument because they're arguing on behalf of the child. They're engaged. They love and care for that kid. There's some common thread about giving back, taking care of, and the reasons can be sometimes religious, sometimes personal. I grew up in foster care, different things. But the common thread is I care about kids, and I want to see something good happen here. I'm going to fight for it, and that I think is consistent in our parents. Despite all the noise from everyone about the foster care system, it's
just not what you see.
No.
Now, you handle children until the age of 21, right?
In one program, they can stay with us till 21, and that's therapeutic foster care. And in the family-based program, family-based treatment program, they can stay until they're 19. Those are just nuances of the different systems. We'd like to help them longer if possible, but that's legislative, and we're working on it.
But what happens? We'll say a child, things are working out well, still in foster care, and the child turns, well, in therapeutic foster care, turns 21, and you have to say, sever those ties? What happens?
What we've done, and more or less successfully, and I'd like to think more, is help them find a place where they can go. And if they've been with the family for a number of years, stay connected and have some support from the families. And our families amazingly step up and stay involved, including administrators. I have kids coming back asking for help years later, and we don't forget who they are, and their pictures are on our walls. So you try to keep plugging, keep fighting a good fight, and it just never ends, really, because it's life.
Do you have parents who say, look, you may be 21, but you're my kid,
Absolutely.
and I know I'm not getting stipends or whatever anymore,
Absolutely.
but
That's right.
you know, this is your home.
That's
You do
absolutely
have
right.
That's right.
And there's some children that have not been adopted still going back and forth to homes at the age of 25. Maybe in another 10 years I'll be able to say at the age of 35.
Wow.
So.
Well, you want them to be on their own and have their own families. I think you guys are amazing. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much for being here. If anybody is interested in therapeutic foster care, we know the number has been up on the screen a number of times. We call Terri Jackson at 914-948-8004, extension 220. Please, if you have any thoughts about it, call Terri.
I want to thank you very much for having us.
Yes,
Well,
thank you
it's
very
been my
much.
pleasure. I have learned a lot about a subject I have not given enough thought to.
Well, call us. We're always looking for parents.
Now a big challenge. Thank you so much.
Thank
I know
you.
it's late for you, but I look forward to learning more about your successes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you at home for watching. I'm Alice Bloom. We'll see you next time.